All right, we have about another minute to go. For the participants, if you could put your phones on mute, that would help us, and then I'll spend some time at the end doing some Q&A. You can also use the tools in AT&T's Web Connect to ask some questions as well. Okay, well, good morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. This is Chuck Pettinger. I'm a process change leader with Predictive Solutions, and it is my pleasure to begin our webinar series this afternoon. We're scheduled to go for about 30 minutes, and we're going to have some time at the end for some question and answer. So we wanted to keep these kind of short so we can just get some information out there. The times may vary depending on the subject, but we're scheduled to go for about 30 minutes and then about 15 minutes question and answer. And again, this session is going to be recorded, and we'll have that on our Learning Center on our website. So let's begin. So how to assess the 4 safety truths with your observation? Actually, before I begin, let me make sure people can all see website. If you do not see the PowerPoint in front, if you could just unmute and tell me you're having an issue. If everyone's good, then I'll just continue. All right, excellent. So, how to assess 4 safety truths with your observation intelligence. Now, many of you we've been working together for many years, and you probably have heard our vision and strategy. But for those of you who haven't, our vision is to eliminate death on the job in this century. We share this vision with our parent company, Industrial Scientific, and we're passionate about what we do. Now, the strategy that we go about trying to create this vision is to predict. All right, can I ask people to put their phones on mute? Thank you. Okay, so I don't know if many of you knew, but our process and technology team, we also have a team vision. We got together as a team when we kind of sat around and thought about what we wanted to be as a group. So our team vision is to be thought leaders to the global safety community, changing minds and saving lives. And we have 3 strategies to go about doing that. Formalize and expand our services. We are creating new services within our group. Communicate our experience and research, which is why we started doing these webinars. We felt like we have a lot of research, a lot of experience that we wanted to share. And then establish ourselves as our partner's best employees. So we want to try to provide as much value to you as possible. So what we're going to cover today is just 3 simple things and then do a little Q&A. First, we're going to talk about what is predictive analytics. I'm going to go over the 4 safety truths. And then along those 4 safety truths, I'm going to show you how within SafetyNet we go about assessing those. So let's jump into what is predictive analytics. Well, I was reading this article, this report called The Essential CIO, and it was put together by IBM. And to increase the competitiveness, 83% of CIOs have visionary plans that include business intelligence and analytics. So really, predictive analytics is coming of age. Many organizations use it already to predict and forecast their business. And here's just some fun stats from that IBM study, just to show how much data is out there and is being collected on a regular basis. I mean, here's a number of things I'll relate to. Number of emails sent every second, 2.9 million. I mean, I have half of those in the box right now. And if you take a look, like tweets per day, 50 million. And look at this, total minutes spent on Facebook each month, 700 billion. Imagine if we just took half of that time and put it towards improving our community. And then another one that kind of blows my mind is music. Thanks. Orders on Amazon per second. 73 things per second they sell. It's incredible. So big data all around us. And including safety, we collect a lot of information. So if you think about the data that we collect 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every day. Now, if you're not familiar with quintillion, it's actually 10 to the 18th power, unless you're joining us from Europe, which they have a different system, and it's 10 to the 30th power. But anyway, this is U.S. equivalent. 90% of the data has been created in the last 2 years alone. So really, this big data, it comes in one size. It's large. And at Predictive Solutions, we collect a lot of safety-related data. And we're working on our system currently to start collecting even more data so we can really get a good idea of what's going on out there. Another characteristic of big data is the time sensitiveness. And if you think about the time sensitiveness of safety-related data and impacting the health and lives of the people that we work with, we need to start using some of this predictive analytics. And again, we collect a lot of different types of data, not only observations, inspections, but near misses, incident data, training records. If we can gather all that information and tell a story. So how do we do that? Well, predictive analytics is really taking in large quantities of raw data, turning that raw data into actionable information, and then we can do some predictions. So we've done that. We actually partnered with the Language Technology Institute of Carnegie Mellon, and there's some very smart people. Now, they've done this before. I mean, several years ago, they helped IBM create Big Blue, who beat Kasparov in the chess match. More recently, they created Watson, which was on Jeopardy. And then, again, with us, they created Holmes, which is our predictive analytics. So we're really proud of the partnership we have with those guys. And we've done some really, really cool stuff, which I'm going to share with you now. So can workplace injuries be predicted? Do we have some sort of crystal ball? And I know it sounds far-fetched, but yeah, we can predict injuries with our big data. Now, on a one-on-one basis, if you take the data from your individual locations, it would be kind of hard to predict all that information. But when you gather as much information as we have, this was done with 120 million observations with inspection data, cue the music. And what we did is we had the guys at Carnegie Mellon. Okay, if people could put that on mute, I would appreciate that.
I think we'd all appreciate that.
You're laughing.
Okay, I'm not sure if somebody keeps putting their phone on hold, but when you put it on hold, it causes music, so please do not put your phone on hold.
Just mute. Thanks. So we took all of our information, and again, if you look at this graph, this straight red line would be a perfect correlation. We took a portion of the data, we created the model, and just essentially we tested it on the other half of the data. Actually, it was a little bit less, but anyway, the correlation that we got we had accuracy between 80 and 97%. Now, correlation is not causation, but this is definitely a good way of looking at, if we start looking at our data, we can actually predict where incidents may happen. So what we did is out of all of our data, we found 4 really strong, what we call safety truths from our research. Now, those 4 safety truths I'm going to kind of dig into a little bit more. But if you think about all the stuff that we do in an organization, many organizations collect audits, inspections, observations on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And to me, that valuable observation intelligence is not being used to its full extent. So we're going to talk about how we can use some of the audits, inspections, and observations to kind of delve into not only the culture, but how healthy our safety processes are. So let's take a look at what SafetyNet will do. We have a predictive model, and it'll start taking a look at the data. And when the model detects something that is unusual, it will send up a red flag. So when you run your project summary report, you'll see a little red flag appear. And that means there's something about that location, project, site that is unusual. Now, when I go through these explanations, you're going to hear me say project or location. We work with a variety of different companies, so we use a lot of different vocabulary words. So you see project in this one, or inspection. It could be observations or audits. But essentially, I'll try to point out some of those differences. So if you do get a red flag, this is a signal that something potentially could happen. Now, what we can do is we can kind of dig a little bit deeper into that and take a look at our observation intelligence and how we can kind of predict or prevent those injuries from occurring. So let's take a look at the 4 safety truths. The first one we're going to cover is increasing audits, inspections, and observations. The first safety truth that we developed was if we increase the number of inspections, observations, or audits, the number of incidents or injuries decrease. We've seen this, dozens of times with our clients. Now, it's kind of difficult for you as individual locations or sites or even companies to gather enough data to make it significantly, to make the reduction significant. That's essentially because a lot of our clients are upper tiered and they already have a low incident rate. And really, once you only have a handful of recordables or incidents, it's very difficult to use that as interpretation. But with our data, we're able to show that if we indeed increase the number of observations, which is the green line, the number of incidents or injuries decrease. And again, we felt so strongly about that, we made that our logo, as you can see next to our logo there in the bottom right. So how do we go about looking at that with SafetyNet? Well, here's an example. This location or project is red flagged. And all you simply do is click on the index percentile, and it'll bring up a little bit more detail about that individual project. So within this project, you can see some index components of how we got that individual index number. So if we take a look at safety per inspection, participation, at risk per inspection by the designee, or severity by the designee, this kind of tells a story about that location or project. More specifically, we take a look at the participation, which is the number of inspections per week. We can see it's relatively low. Now, 24 in the parentheses means how do you compare with the rest of the locations in your organization. So they're in the 24th percentile, meaning, roughly 3/4 of the locations and projects are looking at more data per week. So that's one way of kind of cluing in on what we need to do. We can also look at the project dashboard. If you look at the number of observations or inspections that are being done, you can see that in this example it's kind of flattened out. So this might be giving us a clue. We can also look at the observer summary. So if you just pull up the individual project, if you see on the top it says project, we're pulling up the project that was red flagged. And we take a look at all the people that are assigned to that project or location or business unit. And again, to me, what I really love about this data is that it tells a story, right? And if you are a safety professional and you're responsible for many locations, business units, departments, you need to use this valuable observation resource or observation intelligence so you can better use your resources internally, externally, or where you need to focus. So if we look at this project, it looks like our friend Nate is the one that is really going out there and doing a lot of inspection. Now that may be good if Nate's a really good inspector. However, not a whole lot of other people are participating. So again, to me, this says we maybe have 1 or 2 or 3 people going out there and actually doing observations. So we might visit that location or site and say, all right, Nate, I see you're doing a lot of observations, but what's going on with the rest of the people here? So the quantity of observations truly does influence the risk that we see. So if we can increase the number of observations, we get more eyes out in the field, more people walking the shop floor, we're going to influence the probability of people getting hurt. Okay, let's go on to safety truth number 2, increase participation and diversity. Now, if we look at our data closely, right, if we get more observers out there doing observation, the fewer injuries we have. And this is our actual raw data. So this does show if we increase the number of observers to 60. However, does that mean that we just go out and hire dozens of safety professionals to go out and do observations? Right? Does that really, would that make a difference? Well, safety truth number 2, what we actually found out is it's not just the amount of observations you're doing, it's the diversity in the observers that are conducting the observation. So the question is, should we go out there and get all safety professionals to do observations? Well, actually, the locations that do have 100% safety professional observers actually have a higher incident rate. So as you see in this graph, the fewer percent of the safety professionals that are doing the observation, the lower the incident rate. Now that doesn't mean they're doing a poor job, but really to me, what this points out is that you have more ownership by the rest of the organization. So not only are safety professionals doing observations, but you have managers, supervisors, superintendents, employees doing observations. And the more diverse your observers are, the better chance we have of impacting incidents and injuries. So I always look at observations, inspections, audits. I look at these as people going out and kind of taking a picture, a snapshot of culture, right? Either they're observing, rules, regulations, policies, procedures. They may be observing behaviors. But everyone is going out, and when you're out there observing, you're taking a snapshot of that culture in time. Now, the problem with that is that we all have different filters on our cameras. We all see things a little bit differently. We all have different experience levels. We see things a lot different. So what we need to do is have many people taking snapshots of culture out there. And then when we combine all the snapshots, we get a good picture of our culture. So this is a great example of how getting more engagement from the whole workforce is critical to eliminating death on the job. I was working with a quarry, and they're driving huge trucks the size of small houses, and everyone got involved in this observation process, even the office people. And I remember one of the office managers telling me the story that they got trained to do observations, and they wanted to go out into the field and do an observation. Well, this woman was watching one of these large dump trucks emptying one of their loads, and she noticed that the wheel chocks weren't pushed all the way underneath the tire. Now, she had never operated a dump truck in her life. And she knew what the items on the checklist were. So what she did is she, took it upon herself to say, excuse me, I noticed that the wheel chocks aren't pushed all the way underneath the tire. Now, for those of you that have ever worked in a mining environment or a quarry, you can expect the kind of feedback that she might have gotten. Now, one of the things that was good about this location I was working at is that they spent time to teach everybody not only how to do quality observations, but also how to provide quality feedback. And not only that, how to accept the feedback. So the driver of this truck, said, okay, well, let me explain why the wheel chocks aren't pushed all the way underneath the tires. If I were to do that, when I fill up the dump truck, the wheels will collapse a little bit, and I won't be able to pull the chocks out from underneath the tires. Well, from her viewpoint, that looked like it was something risky. They had a conversation about it, and not only did that make her feel more a part of the organization, but what did that get the operator an opportunity to do? Right? Teach. Right? So he was able to not only explain to her, but again, that makes him feel more competent. So just by having that diversity out there in the observations, they didn't have wheel chalk use on the checklist. And as you can imagine, that was an important part. But because everyone used them all the time, it kind of went past them. So having those, observers that might not know the job to the T, they might see something that no one else sees. So again, safety truth number 2, if we can increase the diversity, we're going to decrease injuries. So again, in SafetyNet, if you have that red flag, we can pull up the project index and kind of dig a little bit deeper. So if we take a look at the designees. Now, designees within SafetyNet, you can go and, what I would say, assign people gold star observer status. So you take your best observers, and in the contact page, you can have a little checkbox that says designee. And those mean those are your best observers out there. So if we take a look at our designee observations, our gold star observers, they're not seeing a whole lot of risky things. And no one else is doing observations. So if you look at that, the designees aren't going out and seeing risky things, and no one else is doing observations. So this would be a red flag for me to go out there and see what's going on. Another thing we can do, is look on the project dashboard. If we take a look at our participation metric, which is the one that is highlighted here, you can see that the number of unique observers is going down. Now what that means, SafetyNet can track if you have 100 people in your on your project, and you get 100 observations turned in, that might be good. But if you have Nate, right, doing all the observations, we're going to get a biased picture of the culture. So we want to make sure that we look at how diverse our observers are. Again, we can also find that on the observer summary report, when you just have a few people going out there and taking snapshots of their culture. So we want to increase the number as well as the variety of observers out there to really impact safety. Okay, safety truth number 4, too many 100% safe observations. Many of the people that I talk to out there at the conferences, they say, really? You're able to predict injuries with these data? I mean, do you really think that these are accurate? I think many of my observations or inspections are pencil whipped, meaning they don't even do them. They just sit at their desk and say, yeah, last time I was out there, I think everyone was safe, and they just check off boxes. Well, what we found out from our analysis is that if we have a location, site, department that has too many 100% safe observations, that increases injury rate. Now, that may be kind of confusing, right? So if we have a low number of risky behaviors, shouldn't we also have a low number of injuries? Well, actually, we kind of had exactly the opposite. So in the locations that had a high number of incidents, we found a group of them who had a high number of 100% safe observations. In other words, they're not seeing anything at risk. Now, this may be due to a number of reasons, right? So if I'm well-intentioned, I go out there and I do a really quality observation, I have some open issues that I need to get taken care of, and I wait and wait and wait, and nothing ever happens to the data, I become kind of disillusioned. We call this the venomous cycle. My participation goes down, my trust in the system goes down, and then pretty soon it's just a flavor of the week, right? We call that flying blind because you're collecting all this data, you're looking at it and saying, oh, we're 100% safe, that's great, but we're still having observations. So what's going on? So again, if your site is red flagged, we can look at the project index and safe for inspection. If we have a whole lot of safe for inspections going on, we have a number of observations that are being turned in. It may reflect a couple of things. One, our checklist is outdated, and they are collecting 100% safe things, so we need to change it. Or two, people aren't finding value in the data, and they're not being accurate. I was at the workshop a couple of months ago, and this guy said, yep, this is what's happening in our organization. As a matter of fact, I take a handful of these observation cards home. I had my daughter fill them out, give her $5, and I'm set for the whole year. So that really tells me that there's no value in people doing this. So part of what we do, again, as an organization, is try to provide you the actionable information as quickly and as easily as possible. You can also check your observer quality. So if this represents all the people on your location, department, project, and you have a lot of 2-star observers, you might want to dig into that and see what's going on. So if we take a look at the observer index, this, to me, is a great coaching tool. Not a way to go out and hammer people or game the system, but if you are a safety professional and you're looking at this observer index for this one person, and I start looking at 100% safe observations, and they're in the 93rd percentile, and I also see that they participate a lot, and they have a lot of safe, but hardly any at-risk observations, and if they do see something risky, it's not very severe, so maybe not wearing safety glasses or earplugs. This is a red flag for me as a safety leader. Here's another example. High participation, but also high all safe. So they're not seeing a whole lot of safe things, a whole lot of risky things. Even though if they do see something risky, you can see that they put a comment down. But to me, again, they may be selecting one thing, or they may be writing a ticket, meaning they only carry around an observation, and when they see someone screwing up, they write that one thing down and turn it in. So it's really not a sampling procedure. So we have to be conscious of the quality of our inspections and observations and really kind of dig into, are people seeing any value? And if they are, they're going to use a tool and have a virtuous cycle. So if they write something down, it gets fixed, it gets addressed, it gets some visibility, people are going to do that behavior again. Okay, the last safety truth, too many risky observations. Now conversely to safety truth number 3, in these locations that had a high number of injuries, also saw a number of at-risk observations. So the greater the frequency of these at-risk observations, the greater the injury rate. And what this really says to me is that people are seeing the risky things, but nobody's doing anything about it. So we have a whole lot of inaction going on. And in that case, people just aren't using their observation intelligence. So again, in SafetyNet, if we take a look at the quantity of risky things going on, yet we still see a lot of injury rates going on, that means that we're not really acting on the data. You can tell that also by the project index. If we see that the severity for the designees and non-designees are pretty much similar, well, nothing's being done with the data. We can also look at our dashboard. We have a number of risky things going up, and also the number of late fixes going up. Now, to me, this is a good cultural proxy. And when I say cultural proxy, we can't really physically go out and poke our finger in an organizational culture. But what we can do is look for proxies for good culture. So in the best companies I've worked with, those are the ones that when they see something that's wrong, they get it fixed immediately. And what does that do? Well, that translates to the employee that they care, right, that they're on top of things, that my voice is being heard, and hey, you know what? This observation that I filled out is actually doing something. I think I'll do another one. So there's a lot of things out there that we can use to really diagnose how our culture is. Also, the observer index. If we look at this situation here, you have this observer who is finding a lot of risky things. They're high severity. They write comments, but they don't participate a lot. So to me, this may be a little bit of apathy creeping in. Right? Well, all right, I see something that's really risky. I'm going to write something down. I'm going to write comments, but I don't participate a lot, or I don't see a lot of safe things. So I'm just doing my due diligence, right? So I saw it. I'm going to record it. Nothing's going to happen to it. So there's all these clues that are hidden within your observation intelligence to give us more direction to better help the safety professional use their valuable resources. So in summary, when we look at our safety truths, what we found is a group of organizations who had a high number of incidents, right? And in that situation, we saw a number of 100% safe observations. So that's the flying blind. They believe they're 100% safe, yet they're still having injuries. So something's going on there. Another group that we looked at had a high number of risky things, but they're not actually doing anything with it. So if they're not using that valuable observation intelligence, that's inaction. Now, there was a sweet spot. We had a number of organizations that found a kind of a medium number of risky things and resolved them. So that, my friends, is what we want to have. We want to have the right number of risky things, not a whole lot of 100% safe, not a whole lot of number of risky things, and then go out, find, and resolve it. Use that observation intelligence to make a difference in people's lives. So we're going to continue to do these webinars, and I don't know if you've been on our Predictive Solutions website, but we have a Learning Center, and if you click on the Learning Center, you can go and ask Kerry a question on his blog. We have our white paper, we have published articles, our video tutorials, and then we're going to have a location for our monthly webinars that we recorded. Now, just to show you a variety of different video tutorials that we have on there, a lot of them help a lot of commonly asked questions. So what is designee versus non-designee? You know, how do I assess project risk? You know, how do I manage the dashboard? So these are all, as you can see, short little videos that will help you use your observation intelligence better. So thank you for attending. I'm going to just spend a few minutes for Q&A. Our next webinar is going to be November 13th. We're going to have 4 sessions. This is going to be done by our own Teresa. She's going to do some new user training. So if you have a group of your users who have not been through SafetyNet training or would like a refresher, we're going to have a session for Apple, the iOS system, iPad, iPhone, iTouch. We're going to have one for Android, BlackBerry, and also PC. We're going to be posting the individual specific times both on our LinkedIn site and our Facebook site. So if you've not tried LinkedIn or you're a member of Facebook, go in and like Predictive Solutions or our parent company, Industrial Scientific. And we get a lot of good conversation in those 2 links as well, or those 2 resources. So thanks for taking your time. Hopefully this gives you some food for thought before your lunch or to begin your morning if you're ever on the West Coast. And I'll just open it up for some conversation. So if you want to take your phone off mute, go ahead and let's take some conversation. If you don't have time to stick around, I appreciate that. And you can also email me with a question, or you can put it up on Carrie's blog. Thanks, everyone. Have a safe day, and we'll be talking to you soon. Oh, let me add one more thing. We have several presentations at NSC. 2 on Monday, and then also doing 1 on Tuesday. So if you're going to the National Safety Congress down in Orlando, Florida, come and check us out. Take care, everyone. All right, any questions?
Yeah, are your slides available from today's presentation?
Sure. We'll make those available on the website. Actually, send me an email, and I'll get you the slides. That probably is the quicker solution. So I'll be happy to send those to you.
And that's the email address that's posted on the page right now?
Yeah, cpettinger, predictivesolutions.com.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Any other clarifications?
Hey, Chuck. My name is Davey Jones with Cummins Central Power in Wichita, Kansas.
How you doing?
Pretty good. I have a question. Have you noticed any, or do you have any data for organizations that mandate a certain number of inspections or JSOs per month?
You mean, does that
use the numbers at all?
Well, several years ago, as part of a grant that I was involved in, I actually looked at organizations that mandated numbers and then did them voluntarily, right? So we thought maybe there's some interest in just making it voluntary. And what we actually did find is that the people who had a mandated number did more observations. Now the question is, are those quality observations? So I think people, if you put out that goal to say you need to do X amount, I think that's good. It gets the behavior to happen. But what you have to do is make sure that you follow up on that data, right? Or else you're going to get pencil whipping. So I do think it's of value to set a goal, one of those challenging goals to get people out there to do it, but without following up and giving people that data, you're going to be promoting pencil whipping going on.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And this is Griffin Schultz from Predictive Solutions. Harvard recently did a study as well of some projects that mandated number of inspections and observations and then posted the results for those groups that achieved and that didn't achieve. And doing that drove a lot of positive competition. And the anecdotal evidence and the feedback from the frontline workers on those projects and teams were that they felt more connected to the projects and to their colleagues and felt much safer. Now, I don't think they have enough results yet to say that it actually affected incident rates or things like that, but generally the feedback was quite positive.
Good. Griffin, we should try to get the results of that and put it on our website or link or send a link over there.
Sure.
I think that would be great.
I don't think they're officially published, but as soon as they are, we'll provide links. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Griffin. Any other questions? I'd love to field as many as I can. So if you have any other feedback on the webinar, please email me if you think it should be longer, shorter, more frequent, what you'd like to hear about. Feel free to touch base with Kerry on his blog. We have some pretty good discussions going on.
Hey, Chuck, I do have a quick question for you. It relates to the last slide that you showed discussing that sweet spot of observations and at-risk observations and how you correct that. Yeah, that one there.
Mm-hmm.
So as you whittle away at that list and you find and resolve, it seems to me like you would enter one of those two states that you want to avoid, either 100% at safe observations or more at-risk observations, probably leaning more towards the 100% safe. Naturally, as you find and resolve, given that you're not introducing new risks to the work environment, is there some cautionary note to that, or something that we should be watching out for as we move through that process?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, because I have a lot of people that say, well, maybe we are that good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you are finding and resolving, right, I've talked to people who have had the same checklist for a dozen years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really. I mean, that we need to update that checklist. So when my clients get to that place where I start seeing the number of risky things go up and then slowly go back down, I know that the culture is actually trusting that if I identify something, it's going to be fixed. So Carrie has a really great article talking about doing some focused inspections or observations.
Okay.
So what I've done in the past with the clients that have gone beyond the find and resolve is that we start doing quarterly observations of different types. So we shake it up, right? So we may do a focused observation just on, the 4S or housekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
The next one might be PPE, just to nail that one down. Or I had one location that went several years without an incident, and they developed a home safety checklist. And they would start recording how many injuries people had at their home.
Okay.
And through that process, they actually showed a decrease in home injuries.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, that's a unique example of that.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You go to that door, take a left, Sparkle Hall, bring it right to it. Okay.
All right, excellent. Any other questions that I can field today? Great. Well, I appreciate all the feedback. Again, shoot me an email, drop a line to Carrie, like us on Facebook, join our LinkedIn page, and help us eliminate death on the job this century. Thanks, everyone. Have a safe day.
Chuck, real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, this
Go
is
ahead.
Bill at Cummins Rocky Mountain again. Just follow up to that last question I asked.
Sure.
Where would I find that focus inspections report that Carrie crafted?
It should be on his blog. If you go through his blog, I think
On the Predictive Solutions website?
Yeah. So go to the Learning Center and then go to Safety Carry.
Okay, see.
And
I'm actually filling in for my boss. He's on an airplane right now. I'm on the environmental side of things over here, and he asked me to step in for him. So I haven't spent a whole lot of time on the website, unfortunately. But
is that Tim?
Yeah, he's
Tim
flying
Smith?
back from Phoenix this morning. So,
Oh.
Okay, cool. I'll look for it there then.
Okay, great.
Great. Thanks much, Chuck. Take care.
You're welcome.
Bye.
All right. Anyone else have a question?